By sea, land, and air we prosper has long been the motto of the City of Vancouver. The fact that it starts with by sea says it all for the author of a new book that takes the reader on a series of excursions in, on, and even under the waters of our region. Here to talk about A Perfect Day for a Walk by the Water, exploring Vancouver's shores, is author Bill Arnott. Welcome back, Bill.
Hi, John. Thanks very much for having me back to the show. It's a genuine privilege.
Privilege for us as well. The book, of course, a sequel to last year's A Perfect Day for a Walk, but this time you catalog a series of walks that hug the shore while also spending time on the water and in the water as well. What inspired this book? Why do the water theme now?
Well, as you know from our last visit around A Perfect Day for a Walk, being a longtime Vancouver resident, I loved walking the city as much as possible. As a frequent traveler, I like the notion of leaving a minimal carbon footprint. And then, to our delight, the publishers, Arsenal Pulp Press, and I, that book, A Perfect Day for a Walk, not only has become one of BC's top-selling books, but it's nominated for a BC Book Prize, the Bill Duthie Bookseller's Choice Award. And we were just thrilled. That's an award that's a nomination for content, influence, the beauty and popularity of a book. And I felt, gosh, during those walks, I was so aware of the fact that there was always a coastline present. There were shore, beaches, as we know, and bays that I feel define a lot of this city. And I thought, what a wonderful opportunity to almost invert that perspective, to look back out from within for that sort of a thing and just flip-flopping it. And all of a sudden, of course, realizing there's a wealth of new stories to unveil from this perspective, in this case, for a perfect day for a walk by the water.
Now, it reads like a guidebook, but it's so much more than that. It seems like your personal journeys with each of these elements of Vancouver, of Metro Vancouver, and of course, taken through that water lens.
Yeah, as a fan for this style of writing, I call it travel log, travel literature, travel memoir. I mean, I joke with people, I don't want to be told what to do. I appreciate the value of a guidebook, but the last thing in the world I want to do is get on a soapbox and tell people what they ought to do and what they ought to see, because to me, the magic of exploration and discovery are those unexpected things with an eye like true travel. And at the risk of sounding like a snob, the difference between being a traveler and being a tourist, getting out there, perhaps getting uncomfortable, meeting with locals, fellow travelers, experts, and getting a little sense, a glimpse into these cumulative narratives that really genuinely make up this land and our city of Vancouver.
Well, let's dig into this a little bit. You argue that even with all its shortcomings, the key to Vancouver's magic is its relationship to the ocean. What do we mean by that?
Well, I think back for as long as this has been a populous center. We can go back millennia, as you know, whether we're talking about our indigenous original inhabitants in this area, Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, whether it was a desirable place to live or proximity to travel, commerce, trade, opportunity to grow and harvest things with respect to stewardship to the land and the water. This has always been a desirable place to be. We could find this in probably any coastal enclave around the world where a freshwater meets salt. There's a romance to it, there's a practicality to it. It very much lays out geography and, as I say, areas that are conducive to settling, raising families, and in this case, building our respective narratives as we go.
And it's fair to say that Vancouver has a relationship with water that a place like Calgary, Edmonton, Regina, or Winnipeg could never have.
It's different for sure, and we could probably find those examples. Populous Canadian cities, chances are a river was a factor or a lake. But here we've got that literally our window onto water that covers most of the planet.
Now, the book isn't just about walking. There's a fair bit of driving, kayaking, even scuba diving going on as well. What was the most difficult part of the book to research? Was it learning how to scuba dive in the UBC pool, for example?
Well, that was one of those ones getting out of one's comfort zone and realizing, hey, if I want to do this properly, obviously there's a means to an end. You have to learn things. So we go back up that learning curve, which isn't always a comfortable place to be, but invariably you're meeting nice people, learning interesting things. And yeah, that first sort of plunge into a pool to learn elements of scuba, to get your ticket. I mean, chlorinated water, folks doing their aerobics and toddlers. And it's not necessarily the same image of romance and the wide open sea that one might imagine. However, ultimately, when we were doing our open water dives here on the West Coast and up into Howe Sound, it did become magic and another wonderful vehicle for learning and engagement.
Now, one of the things that struck me about the book, and you talked about this just now, about how you don't want to tell anyone what to do and you don't want to preach, but you still managed to sneak a lot of information into there. And I'm struck by the amount of research that you put into this and how you just subtly weave it into the narrative. As a North Shore resident, for instance, I appreciate the capsule biography of Chief Joe Capilano and the history of the now lost Moodyville sawmill, for example.
Yes, there's some fabulous elements. I would even say, yes, Chief Joe and his predecessors, grandpa and father, respective Capilano chiefs. I almost saw that early in the 20th century as a bit of a hybrid. Joe managed to make inroads and make a living and raise a family and find commonality with European settlers, still always being very true to his indigenous roots, taking it up with, at the time, traveling to England to speak with the king, talking about land rights. Um, a true elder, a true statesperson, and that was a wonderful role model and example to tap into through research and learning stories secondhand through local Indigenous experts and the museums. Again, it felt like a privilege to just even scratch the surface with some of these shared stories.
I did have a question in there. I apologize. How satisfying is it for you to uncover these hidden histories contained in the land?
Oh, well, buried treasure would be a cliche, but it's a spot on, a sort of the description of that sense of discovery and engagement. And of course, I'm not learning things that others don't know. But the same way when we're traveling and we might go to a place where a million travelers have gone before, it's new to us. And that feels exciting and it still stimulates a sense of discovery and, as I say, engagement. And that feels rather wondrous. I think of it as a deeper sensory engagement, which makes travel and exploration and discovery, the wonder that it is for so many of us.
There's a great quote in the book that you have that I think encapsulates this spirit very well. It's from the urban planner Lorenz von Fersen. I hope I'm saying that right. And it's not history we share, but stories. And so much of this book and the Perfect Day books are all about not history, but stories.
Yeah, isn't that true? And Lorenz in particular, as he's chatting, I think almost anything that comes out of his mouth is quote worthy. His wealth of knowledge and passion for our city. He's spearheaded so many initiatives over the years that we still benefit and enjoy from. Family-oriented things, um, our Millennium stories that are shared in interactive artworks around the city. There is a great example of one of many of the folks that I was just delighted to have visits with as I was doing these perfect day walks around the water.
We were just talking about Chief Joe Capilano, of course, and you take great care. It's an example of the great care that you take to include the indigenous perspective in the book, from land acknowledgments and place names to going in depth on Joe Capilano, but also Chief August Jack Catsalano when we talk about kits. What do you think this layer adds to the book?
Well, I will liken it to part of my research and exploration for this book was going through all of our museums again. And came across a wonderful, I was privileged to be part of an evening event at the Maritime Museum of Vancouver. And like so many museums around the globe, a very concentrated, proactive, positive effort to decolonize these spaces. And what does that entail? Well, it means having a strong Indigenous presence, leading with land acknowledgements, welcomes, reimagining the space for a sense of proper, authentic, deeper engagement and representation. So that was just one example. And of course, like all of us in the city, being acutely aware of that space. As we're speaking, John, I spend most of the year in parts of Kitsilano. If I look out the window, I can see the Sinakwa development growing up on where August Jack Catalano made a home. That to me is the most positive, proactive reimagining of land space with an indigenous-led directive. And that gives me optimism for our future.
Now, August Jack Castellano and, of course, Chief Joe Capilano. A fair bit of North Shore content here, I have to say. And I have a confession to make. As soon as I got the review copy of A Perfect Day for a Walk by the Water, I zipped right to the chapter where you take a ride along on the sea bus, and you even got to pilot the Burrard Chinook. How do you talk your way into doing that?
Okay, well, just to let everyone know, and for Harbor Authority regulations, I was not driving the boat while it was loaded with passengers. I was privileged to sit at the helm as we were safely anchored in moorage under supervision. Having said that, it was awfully fun to be in a big chair, or in this case, one of two big chairs that can make those engines go vroom vroom. And I felt like a kid with my Hot Wheels on a much larger scale. So that was a huge privilege. My wife would tease me saying, "Oh, that's a kind face discount or privilege," but it's also people being genuinely excited about these perfect day walks and the stories, and to be a little, a part of it, as I am a little part of it. So it's very much shared stories and experiences.
So, for full disclosure's sake, then, you did not actually drive the sea bus.
Correct.
Okay. No, so we don't get so no one gets in trouble here. Let's not get that
Very
confused.
clear.
All right. Uh,
The professionalism was exemplary.
but you can't resist posing for the picture. I know I couldn't. Finally, then, Bill, what do you hope people get out of the book? And I think this is a variation of a question I asked you last time. Do you hope your Perfect Day books give people the permission they need to explore their own surroundings?
Well, yes, John. Building on our previous visit, of course, none of us need permission or allowance to experience these things. But if I can inspire or incent people to remember what a wealth of great experiences we have on offer out our back door, where we go to live and to we work, in Greater Vancouver, um, we can do it cheaply, easily, minimal carbon footprint, and that to me is an exciting way to engage in experience. Some folks will enjoy a perfect day for a walk by the water as a simple, comfy armchair escape. Others will treat it as a loosely based guidebook or incentive. And as we both know, Arsenal Pulp Press, our local publishers, make beautiful books. In this case, we've got gorgeous original maps and contemporary photos, along with some archival for a now and then perspective. It's very much a rich sensory engagement in real time mixed media that I'm terribly proud of, and I hope readers enjoy it.
So perhaps not permission, but inspiration.
That's the word.
The name of the book is A Perfect Day for a Walk by the Water, Exploring Vancouver's Shores. It's available from Arsenal Pulp Press. My thanks to author Bill Arnott.
Thank you again, John.